All right, let me pull our session off to the side here. All right, so let's get started. So Paul did not ask me to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and do just a little spiel for, we do have a committee that meets to come up with these topics that we go over at each of our sessions. And I will say I've been on the committee, I think, for about 2 years now, maybe a little bit longer, Paul. And it's so amazing to get to come together and actually, if I'm struggling with something, I go, hey, do you think we could do a presentation on this? So some of the presentations we've seen over the past few years have been, Amanda had a question on how to do this, so she asked if we could do a presentation. So if you have the desire to get involved and want to kind of join in, get in touch with Paul, get in touch with Lucy, and let them know, hey, that might be fun to kind of be on the behind the scenes of these quarterly sessions that we have, because you may be able to get some of your questions answered along the way. It's been very informative for me. So because I've been able to get so many of my questions answered, I decided I should probably give back a little also and do a presentation. So I worked with Roxana and we came up with a presentation, and it's a little outside the box and something kind of different than you've probably seen before. I changed roles. I used to be in our finance department, and I ran a ton of and created a ton of business objects reports. And a few years back, I had the opportunity to move over to our internal audit department, and I'm now a data analyst. So I do still write reports, but I write them from a different standpoint now. So rather than just running reports to give to executives, I run reports now to analyze the data and to look at it and to break it down and to do sampling, which is kind of a different mindset to come into business objects with. You'll find that similar to different dashboard type systems out there, there are a lot of different data analytics software. So I had a weird question of, can we use what we already have? Can we use business objects for data analytic purposes? And I kind of threw that out to the group as, I wonder. So that's where this presentation came from. Like we said, it's a two-part presentation. I'm going to kind of go in first and give you some background on Maricopa County, a little bit of my background so you understand where I come from. And then I'm going to give you what is data analytics, because as a business objects report writer or admin on the backside, you may or may not have heard of this before. It's kind of a new term in the world. Data scientist, data analyst. It's new in the past few years. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I asked Ms. Roxana, I said, hey, can you take some of these type of scripts that I write in my data analytics software, and can we use business objects to write them? So that will be the second part. So the first part is more informative, and the second part of the presentation will go into more details on how do we actually do that. So with that, let's go into the presentation. So let me give you just a little bit of history. Maricopa County, if you don't know, is the fourth largest county in the United States in terms of population. Land size, it's not the largest, but it is very large in population. 2019 population, we had 4.48 million people. We are the fastest growing county 4 years in a row. And Maricopa County itself makes up more than half of Arizona's population. So that kind of gives you some demographic information. The county itself is who I work for. We are the 10th largest employer in Maricopa County with 13,000 employees. This slide is just for informative purposes. I always wondered what our state seal kind of stood for. So this will walk you through. If you get the slides later, you can sit down and look at it and see. I just thought it was kind of interesting, so I threw this one in there. A little bit about my background. So I went back to my pre-government years because I love the fact that business objects also has a crystal reports component to it. Because I started back when I was 2, because you can see there I've got 21 years in government. I had to start working when I was 2. That one of my initial careers was working for a company called Sima. And it was an accounting software company. And I started writing crystal reports. I have my original crystal reports manual that I used to train on years ago. So I love to go back and look at that. After that opportunity of working with crystal reports, I moved into government. I've done 21 years in government so far. I got 9 years till retirement. Not that I'm excited or counting at all. I did 15 years of that with the state of Arizona, and I've been with Maricopa County for 6 years. So I've been writing business objects reports now for about 7 years. when I first came into it, I had no knowledge of business objects. So I learned from the ground up, and so grateful that I found this community. I don't even remember who sent me the email, but once I found this community and knowing that I wasn't alone and had people that could give me tips and tricks. Oh, those Roxana's tips and tricks sessions are probably some of my absolute favorites. Because something as simple as dragging and dropping a report or a field into the corner, having it set for me, it was changing my life. I can say that all around. So, okay. So let's talk data analytics. So let's get into my career field now. So this is kind of where I sit. Now you'll see the first term here is actually our product name, business intelligence, but it's actually used different in a data analytics standpoint. It's actually the discipline of analyzing and transforming data to extract valuable business insights to enable decision-making. And it's typically used to refer to a descriptive analysis or report. So yes, from what I can see, that means our business intelligence system, our BO, business objects, is a business intelligence system. Okay, let's look at the next term, data analysis. This identifies patterns. So data analysis is focused more on answering questions about the present and the past. It uses complex statistics and generally tries to identify patterns that can improve your organization. Okay, that also seems like something very simple that our business object system could do. Now on to data science. This is using data and advanced statistics to make business decisions. Thank you. It's a technique to extract valuable information from data for business decision-making and strategic planning. It brings together fields such as data mining, statistics, mathematics, machine learning, data visualization, and software programming. Now that is a mouthful, but really all of those things, again, still relate to our business object system. So I'm just trying to form some connections here for us. The next is data visualization. Do we ever use data visualization by using charts, graphs, or pictures in business objects? How about data mining? Identifying patterns in large data sets. So if I wanted to see the process of pulling this data and putting it to good use, this includes things from cleaning your data, organizing the data, or analyzing it to help you do your data mining. How about data storytelling? So not only looking at the data as just raw data, but creating a story behind it. It's a practice of building a narration around the data and its accompanying visualization to help convey context and meaning. A lot of our dashboards are our data storytelling. It's a way to take all of those numbers and make them more understandable to the common everyday person that may not understand the details or have time to look at the details. As I say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So the question is, do I need to buy a data analytics software? Probably the top two that I'm familiar with and have worked with is ACL, which is Audit Command Language, or IDEA. Do I need one of those systems, or can I use what I have? So this is a quick little just visualization of the various systems that I have here at the county. So I have business objects. My departments have various systems, lots and lots and lots of systems at the county. With 10,000 employees, we have multitudes. Excel, of course, is a big one. Our HR system is a standalone system. We have our ActiveX directory from an IT standpoint for who has access to get into our network. I have an in-house auditing system. I have departments that use Tableau or Power BI. The system I also use for my data analytics is Galvanize ACL. And we have our finance system, which is CGI Advantage Financial System. Currently, our finance system and business objects are tied together. We bought them as a package. But because we have the ability to import other data sources into it, could I use business objects to help me do some of my analysis? So when I started learning data analytics, I started doing a lot of research on what are the most common areas of fraud that are found. And these are some of the top ones that came up and some of the very first scripts that I started writing in data analytics. And some of these are ones that I gave to Roxana to say, hey, I wrote a script in my ACL, but could I have used my business objects to do the same thing? Because the thing with continuous monitoring and data analytics is the ability to run things over and over and over again with new data. So if I run this today, I can also run it tomorrow and again and again and again, such as like scheduling a report in business objects. And so those are things that you want to always, one of the things I taught people when I was teaching business objects classes was, anything that I can do to make it so I don't have to do a manual process and remove some human error from the process is important. Not that by running scripts, I completely remove the human side of the analysis, but an error in a formula, an error in accidentally deleting something, those things that can happen is why I always recommend to use a system and formula-based system that's repeatable so I get consistent information. So let's talk through a couple of these data analytics issues that are commonly found with finance data or similar type data. The data set we'll be working with today is going to be finance driven, so that's kind of why I focused on these. But vendor versus employee. Can an employee also be a vendor for your organization? Do you have a policy against that? Can you do that for tax purposes? Can I be also getting a 1099 and a W-9? Is that allowable? Those are questions that you might want to ask. Employee payments versus their end date with your organization. So am I still paying people commission checks? Are they still getting a paycheck after they left? Did we accidentally forget to take them off payroll? If there was a bonus involved, is it our policy to pay them for that bonus, even if they left, or are they not allowed to get it? And they did get it on accident. So knowing that kind of information, being able to run that report to see those things. One of my ultimate favorites, though, is searches or matches or keyword searches, which Business Objects does also have the ability to do. And it's building a list of words that people could potentially misuse their P card for. In the state of Arizona, Diamondbacks, Cardinals, because you probably don't need, at a county level at least, we should not be buying Diamondback tickets or Cardinals tickets. That's not a good use of our taxpayers' money. So that would be something we would probably want to take a closer look at as to why they were purchased. You kind of have to put yourself in the place of somebody that commits fraud. And one of your significant others has lost their job, and now you need to go buy baby formula or baby diapers or some of those essential services. So baby might be a good keyword search. These are all things that help somebody narrow down a list of things to look at. With 10,000 employees, I can't go look at my employees versus my 70,000 vendors that I have. There's no way that I can humanly, I would be doing this all day long for the rest of my life if I had to go do a manual search. But allowing Business Objects or data analytics software to do that for me, I can have that report run in a matter of seconds, and I can look at it and analyze it at that point. My P card transactions, I have over 1 million P card transactions that occur every single year. There's no way humanly possible to check every single one of them. But if I can run it through a system and say, here's some that have some keywords that you might want to take a closer look at, and they could all be eligible expenses. It may be my Department of Health Services, and they had to purchase diapers or formula for, one of the people that they were helping, and they have a grant for that. Perfect. It's wonderful. But it's just making sure we look at things just a little closer, and especially from our standpoint, anything that could raise flags to constituents. We want to make sure that we're spending county money in a reliable, appropriate manner. Split transactions. So if you have spending limits on your P card and you can't spend over $1,000 per transaction, but the thing you need to buy is $1,500, well, you say, hey, run $1,000 and then run the other 500. Well, you use supreme policy at that point. You are splitting your transactions in order to avoid those limits, and that's not allowable fuel charges within consecutive days. There are some departments that would fill up their vehicle every day. My sheriff's office, my deputies that are on the road, yes, they probably will be filling up quite frequently. But my auditing department, where we travel, once every month or once every other month, and most of our locations are within a very short distance. I mean, yes, Maricopa County is big, but at the same point, I'm not probably going to go through, 300 miles of a tank of gas in that time. I probably shouldn't see somebody in my internal audit department filling up every other day. That's a potential area that we need to look at those transactions. Or this is another big one. Vendors only being used by one department or unit within a department. So why is only this one department buying office supplies from this vendor? Really, if it's a vendor that's on contract, more departments should be using them. So kind of taking a closer look at that, because those are just areas that make you go, from an audit or an analytic standpoint. So some of these are ones that Roxana is going to be doing her presentation on, that she's taken some of the sample data that we utilize for these presentations, and she's going to show you how to write some of these reports. And so we can see them actually in practice. But the question is, data analytics for internal audit. This allows us the ability to analyze all transactions rather than sampling. I can look at those million transactions in a matter of minutes and be able to say keywords or look at my vendors and see all of them at one time. It helps narrow down focus of items of higher importance. It alerts to possible fraud or concerning activity. And before this technology was available, before it was known to use it this way, you would take those million transactions and throw a dart in the air and say, let's look at this one. And you may get lucky and you may find things. But now we can really help narrow down that search, narrow down what we're looking at, and make sure that we're doing a lot more informed decisions in what we're utilizing. So can business objects be used for data analytics? And with that, we'll open up for any questions. Do you have any questions that came in?
Hey, Amanda, I had a question.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that was great, by the way. That was a really interesting session. How has the county been doing this type, or have they been, audit analytics up to this point?
So we just really started down this path. So my position actually with internal audit 2 years ago was just built kind of for me, because this is my background. My background is in reporting and working with big data sets and software systems. So we're new to this. We're really just starting to go down this path. In the past, I did a little bit with the ACL data analytics software. If they had something that was a very large data set, they might outsource it to one of the auditing firms to run it for them. But we're able to now bring this in-house, and we're starting. So over the past couple of years, I've run some continuous monitoring projects on cell phone usage. So we have cell phones in a county that have gone for a 6-month continuous period with no data. So it's got no data, no phone calls, no texts or anything on them. Well, we ran it once manually prior to COVID, and there were a few. And then I wrote the scripts to make it automated. And the first time we ran it, we got excuses of, oh, well, this phone's only used for emergencies. Okay, what happens if? I said, okay. So we ran it during COVID. We just released our first test to our departments a few months ago. And we did have a couple of departments come back with it's used for emergency. And I'm like, well, when better has there been an emergency than the past, 18 months? If you have not used a phone that's been built for emergencies in the past 18 months, then there's no other emergency that you need it for, because we've experienced everything that we should have that you would need a phone for. So yeah, it's been good. Lots of return on investment that we're seeing.
Yeah, I can imagine, and of course, as you find these things out, you must also be, and it gets publicized. You must also be seeing less of it as well, because people know it's being checked.
Yes, fraud occurs when nobody's watching. If people know that somebody's looking, It's like locking your front door. If you lock your front door, if a good person comes to your front door and tests it, they're going to walk away. A bad person's always going to find a way through it. So somebody that truly wants to commit fraud is always going to find a way. But as long as you've got a lock on your door, it's going to keep the good people good. So if they know we're looking, it's going to help hold them accountable.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, I don't see any other questions at this point. I'm just checking in the chat session.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different topic. It's different than what
It
we
is.
normally do.
It is.
It's a little out there, but I think it's important to do that. I think far too often we need new software because it's the latest and greatest. We need the Tableau because it's the latest and greatest. And we forget that we have programs already built into our business objects that can do a lot of things. So don't forget to look closer to home to see if what you have will work.
Absolutely. And of course, with the COVID situation, a lot of things have been disrupted, and it makes sense to make use of what you have. Right. Rather than, to go out and purchase something new that might take months to implement and get set up and so forth. Right. You're absolutely correct. I think that's one of the things that I found frustrating in my career around business objects in particular, is that the majority of customers tend to use it as a reporting tool. Yeah. When actually it can do obviously a lot more than that. Ad hoc query analysis, just like you're showing, all sorts of of data mining capabilities are kind of built into the tool. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that it's all there. Yeah. To be used. And now, of course, dashboards as well you can do with it too. So yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you so much again, Amanda. That was great. We're getting some thanks in the chat there as well.
Thank you all.
So people enjoyed it. And with that, I'll hand back to Lucy.